you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the Almost Immortal Warrior tank build. This is the Dragonknight tank update for the Greymoor Chapter. Now, this build has been used for about 3 years now. It's had updates every single patch, and it has, for the most part, got stronger every patch. Now, this tank is obviously designed to be a tank. You taunt stuff, you hold aggro, you keep everything where you should, you control the room basically. But being a very strong, powerful tank, you are also capable of protecting your group, and this build is designed to do that. You have massive damage shields to make sure that people don't take as much damage in the health, and of course you can survive so well that the healer doesn't need to babysit you and can actually focus more on the people that need it. Not to mention, of course, you can actually heal your group as well. Now, if you've been using the previous setup, that's absolutely fine. There's been several different variations of this over time, and any of them in any order are absolutely fine. But this does have a little bit of a twist. Now, first of all, we're going to go into the stats. Just pop a potion, put our resistance buffs on, and all that good stuff. We are on 13.2k max magicka, 1700 recovery, 46.5k max health, 19k max stamina, and we are of course on 31.6k spell resistance and 30.2k physical resistance. We're not quite capped, but if we get a minor resistance buff from our group, we will be. You can up your recovery, but I'll explain that more in the gear, and of course you can change your attribute points if you want. We're at 64 points into max health, but if you want to take some out of health and put some into stamina, that is fine if you want some more to block with, but just bear in mind you will lessen the strength of some of the health-based skills, and some of those are your protective skills for your group, so just bear that in mind if you do alter anything. We are a stage 3 vampire, not 4, but you can go 4 if you want, although there are quite high negative effects, and we are using the Ritual Mundus Stone. Again, you can change this if you feel like your heals for your group and yourself are way overkill, then of course you can change this to the Atronach instead, and then you can spam your Ignis Shields and such more often. That will make sense when we get to skills in a moment. Max health and max stamina food, just standard blue stuff, just here, which is pretty much all it does is gives you max health and max stamina. But if you do want to drop stamina and you can maintain your resource pool, so you can still block with it and all that good stuff, if you're comfortable with heavy attack and inside mechanics, which you will have to do occasionally, you can of course put this on instead, which will give you the same health amount, but it will give you more recovery. If you do use this food instead of having 1700 recovery, you will actually be hitting 2k. So again, the choice is yours, but just bear in mind, of course, your stamina will go down to 13k. You might have to jiggle your glyphs and stats a little bit to buffer that if you're not comfortable. For the most part, however, this stuff is absolutely fine. Now I'm going to go into the skills. These are going to be explained in detail, so if you don't understand any of them, don't worry, it's all covered. If you do skip this part and you ask questions in the comment section below, and this has already been answered, I will be ignoring those comments, by the way. Skip at your own risk. So, here we go. We are using Igneous Shields, first of all, which is from the Earth and Heart skill line. It's the third ability you unlock. Starts off as Obsidian Shield, morph it to Igneous Shield. The reason being is this particular morph has a larger damage shield for you and your group. This gives you a damage shield for 8 seconds and will give you major mending for 25% increase to your healing done for 3 seconds. Now, the damage shield that you get is larger than the groups, but the more health you have, the bigger this is. So at the moment, it's almost a 10k damage shield for ourselves and almost a 4k damage shield for the group. All you have to do is activate this. It protects you, it protects them, it will shield up to 6 people, but this has some other bonuses to it as well once we get to the passes, but that will come later. The most important thing is this protects the group and gives you major mending, and it's literally on tap. You just press it when you need it. This is next up, Green Dragon Blood. This is in Draconic Power skill line. It is, if I can get to it, the third ability you unlock starts off as Dragon Blood, morph it to Green Dragon Blood. Now this does give you major fortitude and major endurance, which will increase your health recovery and your stam recovery. Now our health recovery is not that important because we're a stage 4 vampire, 3 vampire rather, but that will give us a minor bonus, and we do get minor vitality as well, increasing our healing received. So our healing received will be actually increased by 8%, and this will last for 23 seconds. Now, although this is a heal, and it scales off of your missing health, so the bigger your health pools, the more that 40% actually equates to, this does stack off of healing received and healing increased as well, healing done. So your healing received bonuses don't show in the stats, but your healing done does. So if I activate my Igneous Shield right now, that turns into 49% of your missing health, not 40. So what you want to do is you want to keep this up all the time as an active buff, but when you want to take the heal, you want to shield first, heal second. So it's very important to pay attention to what this actually does. It's a buff indefinitely, but if you activate it, it will give you a heal as well. The big heal you want to take after it's already active, because then you get all these nice bonuses. So next up is, of course, Pierce Armor, Sword and Board skill line. First ability to unlock, starts off as Puncture, morph it to Pierce Armor. We get a massive debuff for this on the target. Basically, you taunt the target and it gives them, or affects them, with Major Fracture and Major Breach, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 5280 for 15 seconds. That's a very important debuff. It doesn't stack with others of exactly the same kind, so make sure that you are the one that keeps this up. This will increase the damage output of your stamina DPSs and your magicka DPSs. At the same time, this is a taunt. If you want to keep the aggro of a target, as many targets as you need to activate this to get their attention. It's the only way to aggro. There are many different taunts in the game, but a taunt essentially is the only way to do it, to make sure you can control it. Now, there is a big problem with people not understanding this skill. It's very simple. You taunt, it stays on you. It falls off, it runs away. Do not let this run out. If you have to reactivate it before it runs out, that is fine, that's efficient. If you think that leaving it to run out and then reapplying it is safe, then you're wrong, and you need to pay very close attention to your timers. Make sure this never runs out. You don't have to spam it, but do keep it up at least once every 15 seconds per target if you want to keep hold of them. Next up is Hypnosis. This is in the Vampire skill line. Now, this is a flex slot because I do sometimes put in this Sword and Board ability. Absorb Missile, starts off as Defensive Posture, morph it to Absorb Missile. This is scaled off of your max health, and if you activate it, you can absorb one projectile, and it will give you a big heal. That is situational. I don't use it all the time, but for the purpose of this video, for this particular setup, I mean, if you do want to swap this, that's fine. We're actually using Hypnosis, which is a new skill in the Vampire skill line. It's a 4th ability to unlock, starts off as Mesmerize, morph it to Hypnosis. This will actually stun enemies in area of effect for 5 seconds if they're facing you. It cannot be blocked either. So there are enemies that can't be stunned, of course, but if you're in a big trash pool, not only can you immobilize enemies and pull them in and all that good stuff, this can actually stun them. So this is very important, but just bear in mind this does run off the same immunity as chains, because that's kind of a stun as well. So just make sure, of course, that you have kept an eye on who is stunned, who is CC'd, and all that good stuff. But if you want a moment of safety, say for example there's several ads in front of you and everything's going wrong, you can just stun everyone in front of you, get a breather, and get in a sneaky heavy attack. It's a really nice skill, very welcome one in fact to the new Vampire skill line, so use this as and when you can. Obviously don't use it against things that can't be stunned. If you've got nothing that can be stunned, then this could be swapped out for Mist Form, which did get changed and has moved to the bottom of the list, number 5. This starts off as Mist Form, morph it to Blood Mist. Now this is your I'm not going to die button. Basically, there are many enemies in the game that cannot knock you down when you've got this active. It actually removes the ability to be disabled or immobilized. And if you're already snared or rooted, this will actually help you get out of that. Now, this does reduce all damage you take by 75%. But on major bosses, this immunity to disabling effects doesn't apply. So just bear that in mind. There are some enemies that can knock you down. Anything that's not a major boss, this will apply. And here's an example. If you are against the Axes in Arthurian Archive and they're all trying to heavy attack you, but you're out of resources and you think you're going to be in trouble, you can activate this and they'll basically hit nothing but air. Not only that, you now heal off of it every 1 second, whereas before you didn't. Also, this doesn't cost a flat maximum amount of magic. It used to be about 5k. Now it costs 1k every second. So you can activate it for as long as you can maintain it. Or for a very short period of time if you want to, with no massive negative effects. Before, if you wanted to activate it for just a second, 5k gone. Now if you want to activate it for a second, it's only 1k. This does also apply to your vampire passives, where you get a reduction to cost. So the higher your vampire level, obviously the cheaper this is. Now, next up is Bone Surge. This is also, alongside Ignis Shields, a damage shield. Now, this costs stamina instead of magicka, but this protects you for almost 15k. It's a massive damage shield, and they do stack together. But instead of landing on 6 people, yourself and 5 others included, this has a synergy effect that affects 5 other people. If they activate this, they receive a damage shield equivalent to 30% of their max health for 6 seconds, as long as it lasts. unless it gets stripped off of them. And at the same time, they get major vitality, increasing all of their healing received by 30%. So this protects your group and gives them a massive buff to receive bigger heals so that they're not in trouble. It's a very, very good skill. Make sure people take this synergy. And again, remember, you can stack this and this together. And if they are protected by 2 damage shields while you're spamming igneous shields and you're using heals that help your group, which we do have, we'll get to that later, this can be a very nasty combination as far as mitigation is concerned. It's very important. Next up is our main ultimate. Now, this can be swapped out for one of 2 abilities. We are currently using the block ulti from the Sword and Board skill line, which is Shield Discipline, morphed from Shield Wall. You need level 50 in one-hand and shield to obtain this. Now, this will give you a block, basically, for 8 seconds. You can run around full speed, blocking everything. You can heavy attack, you can dodge roll, you can jump, you can run, you can do the whole lot, and you just block without actually holding block. At the same time, all of your one-hand and shield abilities are free. So this here, your Pierce Armor, or if you use an Absorb Missile, all of those are free. So if you need to reapply, say, 5 or 6 taunts during this duration, you are protected and you're applying them for nothing. You can also, like I said, heavy attack from underneath it. So whereas Magma Shell, for example, you get back resources, you are protected, but you still have to maintain blocks and all the rest of it and then try and get your resources back. This you don't need to. You just activate it, heavy attack like hell, fill your bars up, taunt for free, and you're good to go. The other option is the Vampire Ultimate, which is absolutely insane. Now, this does cost quite a bit, and the higher your Vampire level, the cheaper it is. It lasts 20 seconds, but when you transform into a Blood Scion, you get 10k max stamina, 10k max health, 10k max magicka. You heal for 18% of all damage that you deal, and we will be dealing damage a little bit. And you can see enemies through walls. So in PvE, this is great to see where enemies are in the next room if you need to. If you're not too sure, or if you've lost a couple of enemies and maybe you've got some bugs or something in way rest, who knows. There's lots of different ways to utilize that. But in PvP, although this isn't a PvP build, you can see everyone, so this is really sneaky. But the main reason for this, apart from going full God mode, is that you ascend to stage 5. Now, at the moment, we are stage 3. But this will grant you stage 4 with no drawbacks. So it will give you no increased normal ability cost, no increased fire damage, maximum vampire reduction to cost skills, and no health recovery loss whatsoever while this is active. So for 20 seconds, you are full out God mode. It's insane. A very, very cool skill. The visuals for it are amazing as well. So this is what I would put on the front bar instead of this if you don't need it. Now, back bar. First up, we use an Overflow and Alter. Any of the morphs is fine for this, but this one does give a bigger heal. This is actually from the Undaunted skill line. First ability to unlock starts off as Blood Alter, morph it to Overflowing Alter. Now, this does cost health to activate initially, and this does have a larger return to health if someone takes a synergy. The other one is cheaper health and longer duration, but the healing from the synergy is less. Whichever one you choose is entirely up to you. But the health cost for this is not a problem because one of our sets literally covers this within the first second of it being activated. When this is on the ground, anyone that does damage to any enemies inside of the radius will actually get almost 1k health back every 1 second for damaging them. And this applies to you as well. If you're doing any damage to anything, you will also receive a heal for this. Unstoppable Brute is from the Heavy Armor skill line. That's our next major skill. This is a resistance buff. We must keep this up as much as possible. Bear in mind, of course, you might have a Warden in your group giving you a resistance buff anyway, but this does have an extra bonus to it. Now, this will give us Major Resolve, which will give us physical and spell resistance equivalent to 5280 for 20 seconds, which is nice. But it will also grant you immunity to knockback, disable effects for 6 seconds, but reduces your movement speed. So while activated, this will give you the resistance buff, but for the first 6 seconds, it will slow you down. So time this very carefully. If you know a major mechanic is coming where you have to run really fast, try not to activate it during that phase. The rest of the time you should be just fine, as long as you don't have to move around too much. If you do get caught with this and you are snared and you do have to move fast, dodge roll, you will still make the same gap as you would if you weren't snared. At the same time, this also decreases the cost of break free, which is very important, and that is increased per piece of armor worn, which is quite helpful. Next up is Inner Rage. This is our back bar taunt. Now, if you are using an Ice Staff, which is an option, we'll get to the gear in a bit, you don't really need to put this on. You can put something else here instead, maybe Mist Form on this bar so you don't have stun or Mist Form. Perhaps you have stun on the front, Mist Form on the back. It's entirely up to you. But this is a ranged taunt essentially, and if you activate this, any enemy 28 meters away with this ability on them will be taunted by you for 15 seconds. Remember, you must maintain that taunt. Just be aware, of course, this is a ranged taunt, not a melee taunt. This one applies a debuff, this one doesn't. This applies a synergy effect where people can activate it and do big damage, which is great. But if an enemy is coming to you with this taunt on them, stab them when they get close to their debuff. The debuff is important. This is for aggro, this is for aggro and debuff. Unrelenting Grip is next. If you haven't taunted something from range, or even if you have and it's running towards you, you may want to pull them in. So ranged targets will not come to you. They will still stay at their maximum range the whole time if they can. So if you're taunting something from range and it's an archer, for example, you need to get way out of his range for him to run to you and then come back in again. Or if they can be changed, you can use this. Now this is Unrelenting Grip. It's in the Ardent Flame skill line. It is the last ability, the fourth ability in fact that you unlock. Starts off as Fiery Grip, morph it to Unrelenting Grip, and this will chain the enemy to your feet. Now, this also has an extra bonus to it. If you activate it, you will have movement speed increased by 30% for 4 seconds. But also, if you chain someone that can't be chained, maybe they're on immunity for cooldowns, or maybe they're a boss and they can't be chained anyway, the whole skill will be refunded. 100% the magicka. So in certain situations, you could just chain the boss on purpose to get the speed buff. Or if you accidentally pull something, you're not punished for it. So this is actually a very helpful skill for control and for maneuverability depending on the situation. Next is Choke and Talons. This is in the Draconic Power skill line. Second ability unlock starts off as Dark Talons, morph it to Choke and Talons. Now this ability lasts for 4 seconds. It immobilizes targets in front of you or around you. But if they are affected by this, even if they can't be talonsed up, if they can't be immobilized, even if the target is immune to it, if it's a boss, it doesn't matter. Any target caught by this will be affected with minor maim, reducing all of the damage they do by 15% for 10 seconds. So this is actually useful on bosses even though they can't be pinned, and it's really good in area of effect if you've got lots and lots of ads. Not to mention, of course, there is a synergy effect attached to this, so people can actually do damage by standing next to you and activating that synergy. Now, on the back bar, if you're using Sword and Board ulti on the front bar, by the way, and you want Vampire on the back, that's fine, but I kind of like it on the front. But on the back bar, you can go with Warhorn or Magma Shell, whichever you prefer. This is kind of a protective shield for your group if you really, really need it, which is in the Earth and Heart skill line. It starts off as Magma Armor, morph it to Magma Shell. Or, essentially, for the most part, you'll want to be using Aggressive Warhorn. The choice is entirely yours. It depends on the situation at the time, but if you do have Warhorn and you can utilize it in your group, I would encourage you to do so. It gives everyone 10% max magicka and max stamina, yourself included, for 30 seconds, and increases all damage, or critical damage in fact, by 15% for 10 seconds. So it gives everyone major force. Now if you stagger these, you can of course overlap them so that you can have a really high uptime on them if you've got multiple Warhorns in your group, but essentially you don't want anyone to try and put theirs over top of yours before the 10 seconds is up. Maybe 9 seconds or so isn't too bad, but if they start stacking these every 5 seconds, it's a bit of a mess and it's a waste of the resources. So you do have to time these quite well. But if you're a solo tank or you're in dungeons or whatever and your group isn't too squishy and you are protecting them quite well, you can use Warhorn all day long. It's really, really nice. Good damage boost for everybody. Now, we're going to go into passives, and this will start making a little bit more sense, and then we're going to go into the gear. So, Ardent Flame, you're going to want all of these. This increases the damage of your burning and poison status effects by 50%. We do have poison effects going off. We will utilize that damage bonus, even though we're not built for damage as such. But when you apply burning or poison status effect to the enemy, if it's burning, you get 500 magicka back. If it's poison, you get 500 stamina back. Now, if you do get a poison status effect, and it ends up applying another one, so you end up getting 2, it will go on top of the old one. It will replace it. And that, because it's a new one, will give you a further 500 stamina. So the poison that we're using on the build, which you'll see with the gear, every time it ticks, if it applied a poison status effect every single tick, it will give you 500 stamina back every single tick. The more enemies you hit with that kind of stuff, the better. That will again make more sense in the gear, but this is a very important passive. Make sure you do get it, because you can sometimes borderline permablock if you're in big ad pulls, because you just have that ability to sustain from this passive alone. When you deal direct damage with an Ardent Flame ability, you reduce the enemy's movement speed. That's not massively important, but then again, you do use this that is from that skill line, and you do not want enemies to run away. So they're slower when you chain them in, which will give you more of an opportunity to pin them up with this. You chain them first, then pin them, then make sure you've got all your stabs in. Some try to run fast, they won't be able to for the first few seconds. Increase the damage over time for Fire Breath, Searing Strike, and Dragonknight standard abilities by 33%, and the duration by 4. That is not actually essential. We don't really need that one. And this increases the damage of your Flame Area of Effect abilities, which we're not using, and decreases the cost of your Poison abilities, which we are also not using. However, if you do choose to use the banner for any reason whatsoever, especially if you're using it for CC or anything like that, then of course you will want to get these two passives because they are applied on that skill. Draconic Power is important. This increases the amount of damage you can block. Obviously, as a tank, you want to make sure you can do that. While a Draconic Power ability is active, your healing receives increased by 12%. So while you have Dragon Blood active, as an active buff, you have Major Fortitude, you have Major Endurance, you have Minor Vitality, and you also get a further 12% healing received here. Increase your health recovery for each one slotted. That's not massively important, but the increased range to your melee attacks is. You get 2 meter extra on your melee attacks, which means your light attacks, your heavy attacks, and your taunt actually have 7 meters instead of 5. This increases your spell resistance. Pretty straightforward stuff. Make sure you get all these passives. Earth and Heart is incredibly important, by the way. This increases the duration of your Earth and Heart ability, so that means your Ignis Shields last longer, and so does your Magma Shell if you're using it. This will give you health, stamina, and magic back for every 1 point of ultimate cost. So the more expensive your ultimate, the better, because you just fill your bars with resources. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you and your group get minor brutality for 20 seconds, increasing their weapon damage by 10%. So just spam Ignis Shields basically, and you can keep this up forever. They all get a nice boost. And if you are in combat, you also generate 3 ultimate, and this can happen once every 6 seconds. So as long as you use an Ignis Shield at least once every 6 seconds, you will get more ultimate back for doing so. So this is a win-win situation. This is a damage shield for you and your group. It has Major Mending on it to apply extra heals, and it also gives the group minor brutality and gives you ultimate, and every time you press it you will get 990 stamina back. So you have high magical recovery to spam this to protect the group, to get stamina back, to be able to block the big stuff. It all works in tandem with each other. It's really, really helpful. Now, Sword and Board passive, you want every single one of these. They are all incredibly important. Do not miss them. But this will reduce the stamina cost of all your one-handed shield abilities by 15% and reduce the cost of blocking. This will increase the weapon damage by 5%, but more importantly, the amount of damage you can block. That's very important. Without block passives, you will die to one-shots quite a lot. This improves your standard bash attacks, which is not massively important in terms of their damage output, but it does cost less stamina as well by 40%. This increases the amount of damage you can block from projectiles and ranged attacks, and this reduces the movement speed penalty for blocking. So you are slower while you're blocking, except if you're using the block ulti, so this kind of makes you a bit faster. So you can move around more while holding it. Now, Destruction Staff is only relevant if you're using an Ice Staff on your back bar, which you are more than welcome to do if you choose to, but if you do, you will want this passive here. Tri-Focus for the Ice Staff is very, very specific. A fully charged Frost Staff heavy attack will taunt the enemy. So that is your range attack at the moment, which costs. This is your ranged taunt for free. It also gives you a small damage shield, but also, while you're on that bar, you will use your magicka to block, not your stamina. So be very aware of the two sides of your resources and keep up with them. Otherwise, you may be dry and you may end up with a one-shot, which is nasty. Also, this is important. This will give you block passives, much like the Sword and Board. If you do choose to use an Ice Staff, Ancient Knowledge and Tri-Focus are the two passives you must have without fail. If you don't, then you're going to be dead. And you're not going to taunt stuff. DPS, by the way, if you're watching this video, do not get Tri-Focus on an Ice Staff because you will taunt the enemy. This is for tanks or people that want aggro. So above all, Tri-Focus and Ancient Knowledge are extremely important. Again, the build is Sword and Board, but you can swap for a Destra on the back bar if you really want to. There are options for skills there. I'll leave that up to you. We are using one piece of light armor, and this is actually done on purpose. I usually go 7 heavy on pretty much everything, but since we've got some really negative effects for our vampire, increase the cost for our skills, this one piece does actually help us a small amount. So, you want these passives here. This will reduce the effectiveness of snares applied to you by 4% per piece worn and reduce the cost of sprinting. That helps us out a little bit. This will increase your magical recovery, which helps us out a lot, and reduces the cost of your abilities by 2% per piece. That's actually quite helpful because it gives us the ability to spam Igneous Shields a bit more often because we've got increased recovery and reduction to cost. And also we get spell resistance as well, but that's tiny and we've got more than we need anyway. But that is why we've chosen that, because Igneous is now a little bit cheaper. It does get very expensive being a vampire, and that did actually help close the gap a little bit. We're not using any medium at all, and we are of course using heavy armor. We're using 6 pieces here, so this will increase your physical and spell resistance per piece worn. This will increase your health recovery, which is not that important, but it does give you constitution. So we do get 108 magicka back and stamina back when we take damage for every piece we wear, once every 4 seconds, which is currently a 649 bonus, which is really nice. This will increase your max health by 12% because we're using 6 pieces. This will increase your magicka and stamina you get back from your heavy attacks, and this will increase your healing received. We have a lot of stacked healing received and a lot of stacked resistances and return to resources, even while blocking, for the way that we're set up. Now, we are a vampire. We are stage 3. If you want to go stage 4, that's up to you, but all your stuff is going to cost a lot more, and you're going to take a bit more damage from fire. The fire damage is really not that much of a problem, but the increase to cost may be. However, that's up to you. Now, the reason we are a stage 3 is to get this stuff down as much as possible. As you can see here at stage 3, we have a 60% negative to our health recovery. We have a 13% extra damage taken penalty, if you like, for being a vampire stage 3. And our cost to our regular abilities, including our ultimates, are increased by 8%. If you were stage 4, that would be up to 12. That still, on this build, is absolutely fine, but stage 3 is not a problem. You don't really need to be stage 4 except for one passive, and we'll get to that in a minute. While we are stage 3, however, our vampire ability cost is down by 16%, and if you do choose to go to stage 4, it will be reduced by a whopping 24%. So your blood sign ulti is cheaper, and so is everything else. So there are balancing scales there to figure out which way you want it. I have tried stage 4 quite a lot for one particular passive, and it is very, very nice, but the choice, honestly, is yours. 3 or 4 is not a problem. But 3 is a little more optimal for your standard resource costs. This will increase your movement speed while sneaking, basically ignoring the slowdown penalty while you sneak, because it normally does, and you sneak faster. When you leave sneak or invisible or mist form, your weapon and spell damage increased by 300 for 6 seconds. It's not massively important for us, but we'll take it anyway. This is awesome. If you're stage 3 or higher, so 3 or 4, we are 3 on purpose, 4 is fine, you reduce the amount of damage you take by up to 30% based on your missing health. This used to only kick in when you go under 50% before. Now, it's active all the time. As soon as you start taking damage, you start taking less and less and less, the less health you have. Very, very powerful passive. And this one is the only reason I would take stage 4. It reduces the cost of sprint by 50%, which is insane. And when you continuously sprint for 3 seconds, you automatically become invisible. That is a very good reason to be stage 4 in some situations. But you may want to, you may not want to. It's up to you. So stage 3 for Undeaf and all the rest of it. Stage 4 if you want this passive. But just bear in mind, your base abilities will be more expensive. We are using some Fighters Guild passives. In fact, one overall. We're using this. Banish the Wicked. If you kill someone, and they are Undead, Daedra, or Werewolf, you will get 9 ultimate. And that sometimes happens. So that will help. I'm not using any Mages Guild. Undaunted, of course, you want both of these. These are very, very important. Activating an ally synergy will restore 4% of your max health, max stamina, and max magicka. You got no excuse to not take synergies. Pick up every single one you can see. This is what you get back per synergy. And this increases your health, stamina, and magicka by 2% for each type of armor worn. Generally, we usually wear 7 heavy on my tanks, but this particular one is using 6 heavy and 1 light, so we've got 2 different types, which gives us a 4% health bonus overall. It's exactly the same health bonus as if you were to use 7 heavy, but we've got a little bit more on the resource sides, which isn't that important. Overall, it's a small bonus, but we'll take it anyway because it's a bonus nonetheless. So do get these passives when you can. We are, of course, an Imperial. We have 2k max health, 2k max stamina, and reduce the cost of all our abilities, which is actually quite helpful considering we've got an increase to our ability cost being a vampire. And when you deal direct damage, which we will do because our taunts and all that kind of stuff is direct, you will heal yourself for 412 and restore 333 magicka and stamina once every 5 seconds. Keep your taunts up and you will get resources back. Simple as that. Very nice passive overall, and over a long period of time this really does add up, and it also stacks alongside your Constitution passive where you get hit and get resources back. Really nice indeed. And of course, finally, the most important passive in the game, in my opinion, medicinal use. If you have this, your potions last longer. We're using tripod potions, which give us health, magicka, and stamina back. And in the meantime, while they are active, or when you've activated it, you actually get health recovery, stamina recovery, and mag recovery all at the same time. Yes, our health and stamina recovery is covered by our Dragon Blood already, but if our Dragon Blood is down, we've already got it covered by the potion. Those major endurance, major fortitude, and major intellect buffs are with us for the entire time, if we constantly keep our potions up, because this will allow us to have 47-second timers on our potions, and the cooldown is 45. 100% uptime on those buffs. Very helpful indeed. Now we're going to go into the gear, and this is going to be a little bit weird. So, if you are used to this build already, you know one of the base sets. You've probably got a good setup for it anyway, regardless of which patch you have followed. Disclaimer, all of those are still fine. Now, we're using Leech and Sword and Board on the front bar. So you can get the sword from Lord Warden himself, you can get the shield from the quest. Simple as that. Known honed on the shield with max health. Max stamina if you want, it's entirely up to you. Just bear in mind you will go down in health and your shield and heals will be less effective. And the one-handed doesn't matter what type it is, but just make sure it's in defending or charged. If you go with charged, you'll have a lot more back from your poison abilities from this set, and you'll apply status effects more often and you'll get more stamina back, if you're lucky. But if you're not comfortable with charge because your resistances are too low and you don't know where to plug them in your champion points, defending will be just fine. You don't need to worry about it. Now, this will give you health, it will give you heal and received, it will give you more health, and when you take damage, you will have a 20% chance to summon a cloud of leech and poison under the assailant, so the person that did the damage, and this will deal 1/6/3/2 poison damage every 1 second for 5 seconds, and will heal you for 100% of the damage caused. Now, the cloud can be recast or recreated once every 5 seconds as well, so you can effectively have 100% uptime on this. All you've got to do is get hit. That poison damage ticking over time doesn't sound like that much, but the cloud is area of effect. So every single enemy inside the cloud takes damage, and every single damage tick will heal you. This scales with your healing received, with your champion points, and with your major mending from your igneous shields, from your minor vitality, from your dragon blood, and all your passives and stuff combined. So this heal can be absolutely insane. It's a very, very strong survival set, and it makes you tanky as hell. So you're a very, very strong, beefy tank, and you don't need a healer babysitter. The healer can keep an eye on the squishies instead, which, by the way, you're protecting with your igneous shields. You keep up their protection, healers keep up the heals. You don't need any help, you got the shit covered. Absolutely fine. Now, this does also stack on top of other stuff. So this does apply poison. It does count as damage over time. It does apply poison status effects and does then return stamina. So hands, legs, and feet, if you can get them, and 2 pieces on the sword and board. The other set is in the jewelry and the belt, but we've backbarred the weapon. Technically, the belt can be anything. It's entirely up to you, but we've took the light belt on purpose. This is a new overland set called Winter's Respite. Now, this will give you mag recovery, which is great. We need mag recovery. Max magicka and max magicka. I mean, that's fine. We've got a bigger pool. We don't really need a bigger pool. We just need to spam it more often because none of our abilities are scaled off of max magicka. They're all scaled off of max health. We just need the mag recovery to be able to use them as fast and as often as we can. But the slightly bigger pool is not a bad thing. But we've got sword and board on the back bar of this set. And 3 jewelry. On the back bar you can have this as an ice staff or sword and board. But what this does is when you cast an ability that leaves an effect on the ground, you will cast a circle of healing frost, it's called, for 10 seconds for you and your allies, and they will all be healed for almost 3k every 1 second while inside the circle. This gets a little bit stupid, because that heal, alongside your igneous shields, alongside all your heal and receive and all the rest of it, not even considering other people's buffs and bonuses in the group that benefit them, or major vitality, or even sanctuary, or anything like that if it's close by, this can heal in excess of around 4.8 to 5k every 1 second for you and your group. And all you have to do is put down your Overflow and Altar, because it's a ground-based ability, and this fires. It costs you health, you heal straight away back up to full. It's sustainable forever. All you need to do is make sure that you apply that skill once every 10 seconds, or as and when you need it. Now, you can still use Heaty, of course. We did use that in the last update. That's not a problem. It's still absolutely perfect if you like it, but this set is absolutely disgusting. You're basically a tank and a healer. Very strong indeed. Now, the monster set is Stonekeepers. This did get altered, but somewhat for the better, because sometimes we found that we were over-sustaining. We had a point occasionally on the streams where we would have loads and loads of blocks to deal with, and we would still be surviving because we just popped the potion and all our resources are full, and then this would fire, and now we've got to wait again for it to come back, and we got nothing out of it because we're already full. This now has a little bit of a perk to it. The reduction to the resources you get back was quite heavy, but the speed in which it can fire is faster. This used to only be able to fire once a second, so it would take you 6 seconds of constant blocking, or 6 blocked attacks, for this to fire. It still requires 6 blocks attacks, but it can fire or stack a point every 0.25 of a second. So basically in a second and a half you can make this pop, whereas before it used to take 6. So that's a 4.5 second reduction on how quickly you can activate this bonus. All you got to do is block, stack up 6 charges, there's 2.4k stamina magicka back, and a heal as well. If you don't have this, or if you don't even like the new changes to it and you just don't feel like it's worth it, there are other options. And what I would recommend, one is Lord Warden for you and your group, which is absolutely fine, standard stuff. All you need to do is get hit and you give everyone a resistance buff. Brilliant. Or what you can do is you can put 1 Shadow Rend and 1 Choke Thorn. So 1 of each to give you a magic recovery bonus here and a magic recovery bonus here. That will give you the equivalent of not far short of 260 recovery, and your mag recovery will go up to quite a substantial amount. In fact, just over 2k with flat food, and you can spam Igneous Shields all day long. So you got some options. Grothdar is still there, by the way. If you know what I'm talking about, that means you've seen the previous videos. That is still also a very valid option. Now, to clean this up, Sword and Board of Leeching with feet, legs, and hands. Jewelry of Winter's Respite, 1 infused, 2 healthy. Mag recovery on all 3. And a belt. So we've got the 4th piece bonus on the front bar. On the back bar, we have the same set, but you can use an ice staff or a sword and board. That way we've got this on the back, this on the front. Just make sure that you're only on the back bar for a short period of time, because Leeching can't fire on the back, and this can't fire on the front. This only fires on the back anyway, with Overflowing Altar. Again, remember, if you do preference the older setup, that's still fine. And to take advantage of a very welcome addition to Greymoor, we are using a mythic item. And yes, this is going to take some farming. Bloodlord's Embrace. When you bash a target, they'll have a permanent debuff on them. Unless you bash another target and it will go on to them instead. And every time they deal damage to you, once a second, you will get back 1,535 magicka. So if they're constantly attacking you, at least once a second, you've got a lot of recovery. This is absolutely disgusting. So you can choose to use this if you like. Now, just to recap, to make sense of it, if you do like the old versions, that's fine. If you do want the new one, Leeching on the front, Respite on the back, with jewelry of that set, with 3 Leeching on the body, 1 belt of it, and your monster set, and then that there. If you don't have the antiquity stuff set up yet, you don't have Greymoor, or you can't get this item, do not worry. Just put 5 Leeching on the body, and then you can just go with 3 jewelry, sword and board of this stuff. Or maybe 1 hander and a Leeching shield, and 1 hander here with a Leeching shield. Whichever way you want to fiddle it to make sure you've got the 2 5 pieces running, if you don't have this, is absolutely fine. The only reason we've back barred this and front barred this is because this does take off one of our 5-piece bonuses, and we've managed to wiggle it in such a way that we can still use both sets at the same time without sacrificing any of the 2 5 pieces overall. The choice is yours, but this option, if you can access it, is very, very nice. And just bear in mind, of course, for those solo players out there, you can only get this solo. So good luck with it. Now, just before we finish the gear up, there are other options, of course. If you are using Leeching as your base and you are using the previous update versions, you can, of course, use your second set instead of using the new Overland Light Winter's Respite set. You can, of course, opt for Gallonway, which got buffed to hell because although it did work very well in the past, it only applied to 3 people and now it applies to 11, which is great. Yoloquin is still a very good option so long as you're the one that's the main tank, you're doing loads of taunting. And there's a new set, of course, if you do heavy attack, you will give your group minor Aegis, or major Aegis, in fact, reducing the damage they take by 15% for 10 seconds with a 26-second gap. So 36-second cooldown, 10 seconds up, 26 seconds down. The options are, of course, there if you have access to trials and if you want to use them versus a situation. But for the most part, everything else here works just great. So the choice is yours. How does this all work? We are, of course, going to go... Oh, champion points, first of all. Let's go champion points. So, standard stuff. 66 into Ironclad to make sure we obviously take less direct damage. 56 and 56 to all damage across the board. And 48 into Thick Skinned for damage over time. Don't forget, of course, we've got Unchained. Your break free is actually cheaper at the moment with our Immovable Brute ability. If you do have to break free, your next stamina ability will be 80% cheaper. So that helps. Remember that one. 19 points in a quick recovery to increase our healing received. Again, more heals from our skills and our sets and all that good stuff. And 25 points into here to plug the physical resistance gap because we are lacking some due to our class actually getting spell resistance and not physical. So this just closes the gap. Also, you do have infusion, which means when you resurrect another player, they will get mag recovery for 8 seconds. And you have field physician, which means when you do resurrect someone, you will be taking less damage during that time. Just bear in mind, by the way, if you put on the block ulti, that's a really good time to res people. 56 into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 64 in Tenacity to give us a 13% increase to our heavy attack return. Remember, we have that in the heavy attack passive for the heavy armor as well, so they do stack up. Do heavy attack. Don't just block all the time and then run out of juice and wonder why. Read the mechanics, find a window of opportunity, make sure you do use those heavy attacks. They do help. And of course, increase the mag recovery here. 66 into Shadow Ward to reduce the cost of blocking, and 9 points into Tumbling for dodge roll, reduction to cost. Also, we have a Treasure Hunter passive, which means you will get higher quality items from chests occasionally. 75 into Bless to increase our healing done. 56 in here to increase our critical heals. And we have spec'd into this tree on purpose. Damage over time. Why? Because leeching is damage over time. Mighty. Because leeching is poison. These two increase the damage of it. Now, why would we want to increase the damage of something when we're a tank? Well, the healing received that we get will increase the healing received from the damage done from that set. So any damage it does will heal us, and the healing received bonuses and healing done bonuses increase it. Also, if you can bump the base of it up with the damage increase, it will mean the damage is higher, therefore the heal is higher. You can see where we're going with this. Push the damage up, make the heals go up, we can't die. 3 points in a Pearson, by the way, just because we've got 3 points left. But above all, if we go very, very low health, which we can do safely because we have a lot of health, big chunk of that is a big percentage of heal if we get a Dragon Blood heal in there. And if we do go low safely, our Undeath is really high, so we're taking less and less damage, and we get this. If you go under 20% health, you get 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 9 seconds, and this can happen once every 20 seconds. So keep an eye on your health. Don't spam your healing abilities all the time. You've got plenty of health to be able to go low safely, and then take advantage of that big heal when you go too low, and you get this with it. Build ulti much faster. So, quick demonstration, of course. You know I always go into Hellra because it's got the most enemies, and you want to see how effective this actually is. So, we're going to run into loads and loads of ads. We're actually going to pull everything. So, I'm going to do what I usually do and just grab everything. We're not going to stay here for very long because otherwise you will get bored and fall asleep. But we're going to put everything anyway. All the way up to the door. So there's hundreds of enemies here. I don't even know how many there are. Quite a few. Misform is amazing, by the way. Nothing he can do. Just remember, by the way, when you're in Misform, the heal itself from the skill will heal you, but you can't be healed from anything else. Let's get stuck in here. Now, leeching is firing, meaning that I basically heal all the time by the skill doing damage. At the same time, I do poison status effects, which gives me stamina back, so I can basically hold block forever. In the meantime, I keep my mag recovery up and spam Igneous Shields for me and for the group. I keep up Blood Altar so that Winter's Respite is actually healing me as well, as you can see there. Like 4.8k heals there just constantly every 1 second. And I can't die. Even with a resistance buff off and being sloppy. Now, of course, if you do start running out, keep an eye on the mechanics. Just throw in a sneaky heavy attack. In the meantime, Stonekeepers is doing its job. because although it has got the same cooldown, it procs so much faster now. Now, if I bash a target, say him for example, he's got a debuff on him, and now I constantly get Magicka back just for... Whew, that was close. Just for him hitting me. It stays with him forever. Remember, you can safely go to low health, but make sure you take advantage of your Dragon Blood at the right time, and you will heal to full. Oh, and you have Area of Effect stun. As soon as you bash that target, you can't run out of Magicka. And as long as you can't run out of Magicka, you're always going to have a heal available, you're always going to have a shield available for your group, and you're always going to be able to maintain your stamina by spamming that shield. And there we go. I'm going to jump off the cliff. So hopefully that helped, hopefully that wasn't too boring, hopefully now better understand how to approach this new update to the particular build. You can use the old one like I said if you want to, but this new one is really, really fun. So first of all, thank you all very much for watching, I hugely appreciate support. If you are not subscribing already, please do hit that button, it is free, and of course hit the notification bell so you know when I'm uploading new videos. And of course if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section or description below with links to Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com where all the written guides are as well. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.